I'm Leigh with Aspire Advocacy in the latest installation of our series of videos on IEPs, deep dives into specific sections of them. In looking at an IEP, of course, the first page has your name, address, phone number. That's pretty easy. It's right or it's wrong and pretty standard. Diving into the next page is where you have the opportunity to share what your child is doing well, and equally important, share your concerns for your child's education. Take the time to share what your child does well. In IEP world, we spend so much time talking about deficits that it's important to celebrate all the areas in which your child is amazing. And every child has them, and that should be documented because, as I said, we operate from such a deficit model. It's important to celebrate the pluses. I love that part of the meeting. Right below it, and what we find skipped over a lot, is parents' concerns regarding their child's education. And that's essential because that's part of your paper trail. If you say, I'm concerned that Johnny's reading at a second grade level when Johnny's in sixth grade, then that's a specific stake in the ground that you've said to the team, I have a concern about. It's just one piece of your documentation should you need that next year if Johnny's still reading at only second grade level. You can point to that area of concern, you can point to the goal, and you have multiple areas where it shows you've raised this concern and that nothing's happened. Alternatively, you can look at it when the year has gone well and said, look at that, he was reading at second grade level last year, he's reading at fourth grade level this year. Yay Johnny, yay team. Next major area is the updates on goals. Ideally, get those before the meeting if you can, so you can see where your child was successful in meeting their goals and where they need some extra support for the year to come. If they were this close to meeting the goal, then that's one approach. If there was zero progress at all made, then that's time to have a serious conversation about what we're going to do differently for next year. Some schools just make the goals go away even if they weren't met. You want to at least look at them all and decide if that's the best approach for your child or not. If the child was miserable, you feel like the team did 110% and there's a different approach needed, that's the great time to talk about it. But you need to know how the child did on their goals from the previous year to help frame the discussion on what you're going to do for the next year. Speaking of goals, after you've discussed progress on goals, the next step is to set goals for the coming year. I could talk to you for several hours on measurable goals and measurable baselines, but just a quick pointer, the baseline has to accurately reflect the goal. We see a lot of IEPs where the baseline is completely unrelated to the goal and doesn't address the skills that we're looking for in the goal. And the problem is, if you don't know where your child started, then you can't measure progress. So if, for instance, just to stick with reading, we're going to have Susie read at a fourth grade level in a year from now, and the baseline talks about Susie likes to play with Legos. I'm using a slightly extreme example, but I get IEPs with goals that aren't that far from there. You need to know in the baseline where she's starting. Is it second grade? Is it third grade? Is it beginning of fourth grade? If I don't know where she starts, I don't know what's reasonable to expect in a year. I've had IEPs where the baseline was he's at beginning of second grade and a year from now he'll be at the middle of second grade, and I don't understand that we're expecting a year later that we're only going to have half a year's progress of goals. A way that some school districts get around that is, as I said, not to have measurable baselines. You've got to really watch both of them. The other thing is that if the school needs to explain what the baseline means and needs to explain what the goal means, it's not measurable. The single biggest problem we see with IEPs, besides not getting services children need, is lack of measurable baselines and goals. It is the backbone of your IEP. All pieces are important, but the goals are how we measure progress, they're how we measure the job the district is doing, and they're how we plan for everything that comes after it, including the support, services, placement, etc. I've given this a bit more time, and it's that important. Next, typically, are accommodations. So what does the student need to be successful? Do they need to sit in the front of the room? Do they need extra time on tests? Do they need perhaps half or 3/4 of the problems the other children do? There are almost as many accommodations available as there are goals. Think clearly and ask the team's input on what accommodations your child needs and put them in the IEP. If they're not in the IEP, you cannot reasonably expect that the team is going to implement them. They must be written down on the accommodations page. Make sure they're there. There are no verbal agreements. There are, but they're not enforceable. Services need to be written specifically with a start date, with an end date. Is it individual? Is it group? How many minutes? Over what period of time? Is it 30 minutes a week? Is it 20 minutes twice a week? Is it written on a monthly basis? Make sure that it's all correct. Also have them write down whether it's push in or push out. It makes a difference. Push in means the person providing the services is giving your child the services in their classroom. Pull out means that they're taking the child to another room. Individual, obvious, one-on-one. Group, ask what that means. Most districts, it's anywhere from 2 to 5 kids. It's worth finding out, it's worth asking. Again, all of that should be written quite clearly under the services page. There's also another page that the offer of FAPE that includes how much time your child is going to be in special education and how much time in regular education. Take a look at those percentages. If you're not sure what they mean, ask. We sometimes see a small percent of time in regular ed and most of the time in a special day class or specialized academic instruction. And we'll ask, what is this time in regular ed? And they'll tell us it's lunch or recess. Okay, maybe that's a start. That isn't really time in regular ed though. That's time in the same cafeteria and time on the same playground. Have those numbers on your child's IEP. Make sure they're accurate. And last but not least, the meeting notes. There's a lot of really specific things in your child's IEP. Everything that doesn't have its own spot in the IEP is memorialized in the meeting notes. District staff make the meeting notes. I don't think most intend to, but the meeting notes tend to be biased a bit in favor of, guess who? Yep, district. If you have time at the end of the meeting, ask to read them right away and make your corrections in real time. If not, as soon as you get it, read it and make sure that what is in the meeting notes reflects what you understand happened. Go listen to your recording from the meeting. Make sure that that's what took place. It's your child's meeting. It's strange that we have some districts that push back on that. That's because they like the story favoring their point of view. It is an important part of your documentation, especially if you run into trouble later. If you'd like more help finding out about these or learning how to handle every detail of an IEP or even have one of us come with you, please give me a call. I'm Leigh at Aspire Advocacy, and thanks for watching our video.